When I saw the flames devouring my house, the only thing I could think of was to run to my son. Michael was all I had left after his father died 3 years ago. I never imagined that on that night, standing at his front door with a suitcase, damp and with ashes in my hair, I would hear the words that would shatter my soul forever. "Mom, Jessica says you can't stay here." The world stopped. The rain was still falling on my shoulders, but I no longer felt it. My son, the same one I had nursed through long nights when he had a fever, the one I comforted when he cried from nightmares, was closing the door on me when I needed him the most. "What do you mean I can't stay?" "Michael, my house burned to the ground. I have nowhere to go." Jessica appeared behind him, with that fake smile I knew so well. For years, she had pretended to tolerate me at family dinners, but now her mask had fallen. "Claire, you have to understand, we have our own responsibilities. We can't take you in right now." Take me in, as if I were a burden, an inconvenience, as if the 35 years I dedicated to raising that man meant nothing. But let me tell you how I got there, because this story began long before that terrible night. 6 months ago, everything seemed to be in its place. Sunday family dinners were a sacred part of our routine. I would arrive at 2 o'clock in the afternoon with my famous apple pie, the same one Michael had adored since he was a child. The table would be set with the plates Jessica had chosen for her wedding, white with small blue flowers that I never liked, but learned to tolerate. Jessica always greeted me with a kiss on the cheek that felt like ice. "Hi, Claire, so glad you could make it." But her eyes said something else. Her eyes always told me that I was an outsider in that house, which had once been my Sunday refuge. Michael would hug me with his usual lukewarm affection, but lately, something had changed. His hugs were shorter, his smile seemed forced, and whenever we talked, Jessica would always find an excuse to interrupt. "Honey, can you help me in the kitchen?" she would say just as I was starting to tell him about my week. Or even worse, "Michael, your mother is talking a lot. I think she's been a little confused lately." Confused. That word started appearing more and more in our conversations. Jessica used it like a subtle knife, slicing my dignity into tiny pieces that no one else seemed to notice. I should have realized something was wrong when Jessica started making comments about my house. "Claire, don't you think it's too big for you all alone? A woman your age could have an accident. Those stairs are dangerous." She said it with such fake concern that it made me want to laugh, but Michael would nod as if her words were those of an experienced doctor. My house, my sanctuary, the place where I had raised my son, where I had mourned my husband's death, where I had built my life for 40 years. Jessica saw it as an obstacle, as something that stood in the way of her plans. The last Sunday before the fire, something strange happened. I arrived as usual, but Jessica had a guest. A woman I did not know was sitting in my usual chair, a middle-aged blonde with a smile that was too perfect. "Claire, I'd like you to meet Brenda. She's a real estate agent. I was just telling her about your situation." "My situation? What situation?" Brenda extended her hand with a professional smile. "Jessica told me you're considering selling your house. What a smart decision. At your age, it's the most sensible thing to do." I looked at Jessica in disbelief. "I never said I wanted to sell my house." Jessica laughed with that nervous laugh she used when she was lying. "Oh, Claire, don't you remember? Last week you were worried about the upkeep, about the bills." A lie. It was all a lie, but Michael was there, nodding, as if my memory were an old rag that was no longer useful. That night I left their house with a knot in my stomach. As I drove back, I could not stop thinking about the way Jessica had talked about me, as if I were not there, as if I were a child who needed others to make decisions for her. I got to my house and poured myself a cup of chamomile tea. I sat in my favorite armchair, the same one where I had nursed Michael, where I had read thousands of bedtime stories, where I had planned every birthday and every Christmas to make my family happy. The house smelled of the flowers from my garden, coming in through the open window. Everything was in its place. The photographs of our family on the mantelpiece, the books I had collected over the years, the blanket I had knitted the previous winter. My entire life was contained within those walls, and Jessica wanted me to sell it like a piece of old furniture. That morning, I woke up to the smell of smoke. The smell was so strong that it jolted me awake. At first I thought it was my imagination, those strange dreams I sometimes have since I was widowed. But when I opened my eyes, reality hit me like a slap in the face. There was an orange glow dancing on the walls of my bedroom. I got out of bed with my heart pounding in my chest. The hallway was filled with gray smoke that burned my eyes and throat. The flames were coming from downstairs, from the living room where just a few hours ago I had been drinking my chamomile tea, thinking about Jessica's lies. I ran to my closet and pulled out the suitcase I had used for my honeymoon with my husband so many years ago. My hands trembled as I packed the essentials: some photographs, important documents, the few clothes I could grab. The smoke was getting thicker, more suffocating. I went down the stairs, clinging to the handrail, coughing, my eyes filled with tears I did not know were from the smoke or from despair. My living room, my kitchen, everything was turning to ashes. 40 years of memories disappearing in a matter of minutes. I got out onto the street just as the firefighters arrived. I stood there, barefoot on the cold pavement, watching the flames devour my entire life. The neighbors came over with blankets and words of comfort. But I could only think of one thing. I needed to go to my son. Sarah, my lifelong neighbor, lent me her car after the firefighters had finished their work. "Claire, are you sure you don't want me to come with you?" she asked with the sweetness only true friends have. "No, thank you. Michael is going to be so worried when he finds out what happened. I need to be with him." How naive I was. I thought my son would welcome me with open arms, that Jessica would understand it was an emergency. That family comes together in difficult times. But I was about to discover that my daughter-in-law had other plans. I arrived at their house around 10 o'clock at night. The lights were on, and I could hear the television from outside. I rang the doorbell with hope, carrying my suitcase soaked by the firefighter's hose. When Michael opened the door, his expression was not what I expected. "Mom, what are you doing here so late?" "Son, my house burned down. I have nowhere to sleep." Jessica appeared immediately, as if she had been waiting behind the door. She was wearing that pink silk nightgown that always seemed too elegant for being at home. Her hair was perfectly styled, as if she had not been getting ready for bed. "It burned down? How did that happen?" she asked. But something in her tone sounded strange. There was no genuine surprise. Not the shock you would expect when someone tells you about such a tragedy. "I don't know. I woke up to the smell of smoke, and the entire ground floor was in flames." Jessica and Michael exchanged a look that I could not interpret at that moment. Now, thinking back, it was the look of two people sharing a secret. "Well, but I can stay here tonight, right? Tomorrow I'll look for a hotel while I sort out the insurance." It was then that Jessica uttered those words that broke my soul. "Claire, you have to understand. We have our own responsibilities. We can't take you in right now." Michael said nothing. My son, the man who had grown up in my arms, stood silent while his wife slammed the door in my face at the worst moment of my life. "But, son, it's just for tonight. My house burned down completely." "Mom, you know how. Jessica Island. She's been really stressed with work lately. Maybe you could call a friend or find a hotel." "A hotel?" My own son was suggesting I go to a hotel instead of offering me the couch in his living room. Jessica smiled from behind him. That satisfied smile of someone who has just won a battle. "Besides, Claire, I think this is a sign. It was about time you made some changes in your life. A woman your age shouldn't be living alone in such a big house." A sign, as if the fire that destroyed my home was a blessing in disguise, as if losing everything I owned was exactly what I needed. I stood there in the rain that had started to fall, watching the door slowly close. I heard the sound of the deadbolt, as if my own son were locking me out of his life. The rain soaked my clothes, my hair, my suitcase. But inside, something deeper was getting wet. My faith in family, my trust in unconditional love, my belief that blood will always be thicker than water. I walked to Sarah's car and sat inside, without starting it. I needed to think. I needed to understand what had just happened. My house had burned down, that was clear. But there was something more. Something in the way Jessica had reacted. Something in that look she had exchanged with Michael. It was then that I remembered the conversation from the previous Sunday. Jessica talking to the real estate agent about selling my house. Jessica saying I had expressed concerns I never expressed. Jessica planning my future without consulting me. A terrible idea began to form in my mind. An idea so horrible that I tried to push it away, but it stayed there, growing like a poisonous seed. What if the fire had not been an accident? That night I slept in Sarah's car, parked in front of a hotel I could not afford. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the flames devouring my living room, but I also saw Jessica's face when I told her about the fire. There was no surprise in her eyes. There was something worse. Satisfaction. At 6 in the morning, Sarah found me shivering from the cold. "Oh, Claire, what are you doing here? I thought you were staying with Michael." I could not tell her the whole truth. It was too humiliating to admit that my own son had closed the door on me. Jessica is very stressed. I didn't want to be a burden. Sarah took me to her house and made me coffee with milk, just like my mother used to do when I was a child and had nightmares. But this nightmare was real, and there was no way to wake up from it. "Stay here as long as you need," she said as she handed me a clean towel. "My house is your house," but I knew I could not abuse her kindness. Sarah was a widow like me, living on her pension, and she already had enough problems of her own without taking on mine. After breakfast, I called the insurance company. The conversation was one blow after another. The agent explained with forced patience that they would need investigations, appraisals, documents that had probably burned in the fire. "Mrs. Claire, these processes take time. It could be months before you see a dime." Months. I did not have months. I barely had enough savings to survive a few weeks. And that was if I was very careful with every dollar. That afternoon I decided to go back to what was left of my house. I needed to search through the rubble to see if I had saved anything important. But when I got there, I found a surprise that froze my blood. Jessica was there. She was standing in front of the remains of my home, talking on the phone with someone. She was wearing jeans and a white blouse, as if it were a normal day, as if she were not walking on the ashes of my life. I hid behind Sarah's car and tried to listen to her conversation. Yes, it burned down completely. "No, she's fine, but obviously she can't keep living alone." Exactly. Now she's going to have to make more sensible decisions about her future. My heart started beating so fast I was afraid Jessica could hear it. She kept talking, and every word was like a nail in my coffin. "The insurance will take months, and she has nowhere to live. She's going to have to sell the lot fast, at any price. Yes, I can take care of those arrangements. After all, Michael is her only son." I could not breathe. Jessica was planning to sell my land. She was talking about my future as if I no longer had a say in my own life. When she hung up the phone, she continued to walk among the rubble with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It was not sadness or compassion. It was triumph. Jessica looked like someone who had just won the lottery. She walked over to what had been my garden and kicked some burnt bricks. Then she took out her phone again and took several pictures. Why did she need pictures? Of my tragedy? I waited until she left to approach my house. The smell of burnt smoke was still strong, but there was something else. A chemical smell that I could not identify. Something that did not seem natural. I walked to where my kitchen had been. The refrigerator was completely melted. The stove was a twisted pile of metal. But something caught my eye on the floor, near where my breakfast table used to be. There was broken glass, but not from the windows. This glass was thicker, like from a bottle, and it had a greenish color that I recognized immediately. It was from a bottle of paint thinner, the liquid my husband used to clean his brushes when he painted the house. But I did not have paint thinner in my kitchen. I had never kept chemicals like that inside my house. Someone had been in my house that night. Someone had left that bottle there, and that someone had started the fire that destroyed my life. My hands trembled as I picked up one of the glass shards. It was the evidence that this had all been planned. My house had not burned down by accident. Someone had burned it intentionally. But who and why? The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in my mind like a horror movie. Jessica asking about my house for months. Jessica saying it was too big for me. Jessica introducing me to the real estate agent without my permission. Jessica acting as if my memory loss were real when I had never had memory problems. And now Jessica was at my burned-out house, making plans to sell my land. It had all been a plan. A plan to get me out of my house. to take away my independence, to force me to depend on them. And when that did not work fast enough, they decided to speed up the process. They set my house on fire, my own son and his wife. They set my house on fire to force me to sell my land and be left with nothing. I sat among the rubble of what was once my home, and for the first time in 3 days I cried. I cried for my house, for my memories, for the photographs that were lost forever. But most of all, I cried for the greatest betrayal of my life. Michael, my only son, the boy who had grown up in my arms, had agreed to this. But as I sat there crying, something else began to grow inside me. It was not just sadness or pain. It was something colder, more calculated. It was rage. And rage, I discovered, can be the most powerful fuel in the world. The rage woke me at 4 in the morning. It was not the hot, desperate rage I had felt the day before. It was something cold, methodical, that filled me with a clarity I had not had in years. I got up from Sarah's couch, without making a sound, and sat in her kitchen with a cup of tea. I needed to think. I needed a plan. Jessica and Michael thought they had defeated me, that I was a helpless old woman with no resources or options. But they were wrong. I had something they did not know I had. Something I had kept as a secret for years, because my husband had always told me it was important to have a few cards up your sleeve in life. Arthur. I had not spoken to him in 5 years, but I knew he still lived in the same city. Arthur had been my boss for 15 years at the accounting firm where I worked before I got married. But more than that, he had been my mentor, my friend, and maybe something more that never came to be because we were both honorable people. When my husband died, Arthur had come to the funeral. He had given me his personal card and told me in that deep voice that always calmed me, "Claire, if you ever need anything at all, you call me, no matter how much time has passed." I never called him. Pride would not let me. But now, sitting in that stranger's kitchen at 4 in the morning, thinking about the betrayal of my own family, pride no longer seemed so important. By 8 in the morning, when Sarah woke up, I had my plan ready. "Sarah, I need to ask you a very big favor. Whatever you need, Claire. You know you can count on me. I want you to call Michael and tell him I'm in a very bad way, that you found me crying all night, that you think I'm in shock from the fire." Sarah looked at me with concern. "But are you okay? Because if you need to see a doctor..." "I'm fine, better than I've been in years, but I need Jessica and Michael to believe I'm broken, that I'm desperate. Can you do that for me?" My friend nodded, though I could see in her eyes that she did not fully understand what I was asking. But she trusted me, as she had for all those years of being neighbors. While Sarah made the call, I prepared for the most important conversation of my life. I searched in my bag for the piece of paper where I had written down Arthur's number years ago. My fingers trembled as I dialed, but it was not from fear, it was from anticipation. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. "Hello?" His voice was exactly as I remembered it, deep, calm, with that slight accent he had never quite lost. "Arthur, it's Claire." There was a silence on the other end of the line, but it was not an awkward silence. It was the silence of someone processing a pleasant surprise. "Claire, after so many years, how are you?" "I've been better, Arthur. I need to talk to you. It's urgent." "Of course. Where would you like to meet?" That simple question, without doubts or questioning, reminded me why Arthur had been so important in my life. He never asked why or for what. If I needed something, he was there. We agreed to meet at a discreet cafe downtown. As I was getting ready, Sarah came back from making the call with a strange expression on her face. "Claire, I spoke with Michael. I told him you were in a very bad way, that you needed family support. And what did he say? He said that Jessica had spoken with a psychologist and that it was normal for older people to get like this after major traumas, that the best thing was to let you process it alone for a few days." A psychologist. Jessica had already spoken to a psychologist about me. Without consulting me, without even really knowing me, she had already diagnosed my mental state. Anything else? Yes, he said if you needed anything urgently, you should call them. But for now, it was better not to bother them because Jessica was very busy helping you with the insurance paperwork. Jessica helping me with the insurance paperwork. Jessica, who yesterday had been standing in the rubble of my house, talking about selling my land without my permission. Thank you, Sarah. You are a true friend. The cafe was almost empty when I arrived. Arthur was already there, sitting at a table in the back, reading the newspaper. When he saw me come in, he stood up immediately. He was still the same elegant man I remembered, though now his hair was completely white and he had more wrinkles around his eyes. He hugged me as if 5 years had not passed, as if we were old friends who had seen each other just last week. You look beautiful, Claire. The years have been kind to you. It was a lie, of course. After 3 days of sleeping on strange couches and dealing with my family's betrayal, I knew I looked terrible. But Arthur had always been a gentleman. We sat down and ordered coffee. He waited patiently for me to start talking, not pressuring me, giving me the time I needed to find the right words. Arthur, my house burned down 3 days ago. I'm so sorry. Are you all right? Do you have a place to stay? I'm physically fine, but there's something more. I think the fire was not an accident. I told him everything. I told him about Jessica and her comments about my house. I told him about the real estate agent and the lies about my supposed mental confusion. I told him about the night of the fire and how my own son had closed the door on me. I told him about the shards of paint thinner bottle I had found in the rubble. Arthur listened without interrupting, with that complete attention that few men know to give. When I finished talking, he was silent for a long moment, processing everything I had told him. Claire, are you sure about what you're telling me? Completely. Then we have to act fast, and we have to act smart. We have to. He had not said you have to act. He had said we have to. Arthur was with me. After 5 years without seeing each other, after a call out of the blue, Arthur was willing to help me without asking questions. What do you propose? First, we need evidence. Second, we need to protect you. And third, we need to secure your future so that you never again have to depend on people who don't value you. Arthur took out his phone and started making calls. In 20 minutes, he had contacted a private investigator, a lawyer specializing in fraud, and a forensic accountant. Arthur, all of this must cost a lot of money. I can't. Claire, he interrupted, taking my hand across the table. 5 years ago, when your husband died, I wanted to offer you help, but I knew you wouldn't accept it. Now you're giving me the chance to do what I always wanted to do, take care of you. His words touched my heart in a way I had not expected. Arthur did not see me as a burden or a responsibility. He saw me as the woman I had always been, capable and intelligent. But who needed an ally in an unequal battle? There's one more thing, Claire. Something I need to tell you. What? For all these years, I never stopped thinking about you. Alpsin. Arthur's words hung in the air between us, like a confession that had waited decades to be spoken. For all these years, I never stopped thinking about you. It was not a desperate declaration or an attempt to take advantage of my vulnerability. It was the simple, honest truth of a man who had kept his feelings in check out of respect. Arthur, I began, but he gently raised his hand. You don't need to say anything now. You just need to know that you are not alone, that you will never be alone again if you don't want to be. That afternoon, Arthur took me to his house. It was not an ostentatious mansion, but you could immediately tell it was the home of a successful man. Everything was impeccably organized. From the books on the shelves to the plants that decorated every window, it was a space of peace, so different from the emotional chaos I had been living in. You have a room here for as long as you need, he said as he showed me a bright room with a view of the garden. And it's not charity, Claire. It's friendship. It's what people who care about each other do for one another. That night, for the first time in days, I slept deeply. Not because my problems had disappeared, but because I finally had a plan and I had someone I could trust. The next day, our secret investigation began. The private investigator Arthur had hired was named Robert, a serious man in his 50s who had worked for insurance companies for decades. Mrs. Claire, I'm going to need you to tell me everything again, but this time I want you to give me specific details. Dates, times, names of people present in each conversation. For 3 hours, Robert asked me questions that would never have occurred to me. Who else knew that I lived alone? Did Jessica have keys to my house? Had they been in my house without me recently? Did Michael have financial problems? That last question made me think. Michael had never asked me for money directly, but Jessica had made strange comments in recent months. Things like, "I wish we could remodel the kitchen, but you know how things are." Or, "Michael works so hard, but it seems like it's never enough." Robert, I think they might have money problems. Jessica always wanted more than they had. That gives us a motive. Now we need opportunity and method. Arthur had been quiet throughout the conversation, but now he spoke. What do we need to do to prove they started the fire? We need the fire department to conduct a more thorough investigation, and we need to watch Jessica and Michael to see what they do now that they think they've won. N. While Robert worked on the official investigation, Arthur and I focused on the most delicate part of the plan, making Jessica and Michael believe that I was exactly where they wanted me to be. I asked Sarah to call Michael again. "Tell him I'm very depressed, that I can't stop crying, that I think I'm going to have to go to a nursing home because I don't have the resources to rent an apartment." "Oh, Claire, but why do you want me to tell them that?" "Because I need them to believe I'm desperate. Trust me, the strategy worked better than I expected." That same afternoon, Michael called me. It had been days since I had spoken to him directly. "Mom, Sarah told me you're in a really bad way. Jessica and I have been talking, and we think we can help you." "Really, son?" I put all the desperation I could feign into my voice. "I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have money for an apartment. The insurance is going to take months." "It's okay, Mom. Jessica found a solution. There's a very nice place, like a residence for people your age. They have nurses, activities, everything is very organized. A nursing home. Jessica had found a nursing home for me. She wanted to lock me up in an institution while she took my land. But son, I don't want to go to a nursing home. I want to rebuild my house. Mom, be realistic. At your age, you can't be living alone. And rebuilding is going to cost a fortune you don't have." A fortune I don't have. As if Michael knew exactly what my finances were. As if he and Jessica had been investigating my bank accounts. "Jessica says she can help you with all the paperwork. Selling the land, handling the insurance, finding the perfect home for you. Jessica managing my life. Jessica selling my land. Jessica choosing where I would spend the rest of my days. I don't know, Michael. It's a lot to process." "I understand, Mom. But think about it. Talk to Jessica tomorrow. She has a lot of ideas to help you." When I hung up the phone, Arthur was sitting across from me with a disgusted look on his face. "Did you hear all that?" "Enough. Claire, your son and his wife didn't just burn down your house. They're planning to steal everything you have and lock you up so you can't do anything to stop them." That night, Arthur and I sat in his garden with a bottle of wine. It had been years since I had felt so calm, so in control of my own life. "Arthur, why are you helping me? Really? Why?" He thought for a moment, looking at the stars that were barely visible in the city sky. "When you worked with me, I always admired your intelligence, your strength, but I also admired your kindness. You always saw the best in people. When you got married, I thought you had chosen the right man, someone who would value those qualities. My husband did value me, I know that, but when he died, it hurt me to see you so alone, and now it hurts me to see how your own family is abusing that kindness you always had." Arthur took my hand in the darkness of the garden. "Besides, Claire, I'm 70 years old. I've built a successful company. I have more money than I could ever spend in the rest of my life, but I never got married. Do you know why?" I shook my head, though I think I already knew the answer. "Because I never found anyone who made me feel the way you made me feel during those years we worked together. And now, fate is giving me a second chance." His words filled me with a warmth I had not felt in years, but they also filled me with something more powerful: determination. Jessica and Michael had made a fundamental mistake. They had assumed I was a helpless woman, without resources, without options. They had planned my destruction based on the image of a poor, abandoned widow. But they were about to find out they had messed with the wrong woman. The meeting with Jessica was scheduled for the next day, at a cafe near what had been my house. I arrived early, not because I was anxious, but because I wanted to observe how Jessica behaved when she thought she had all the control. I saw her arrive in her new car, a model that definitely cost more than Michael earned at his job. She got out with a thick folder under her arm and that fake smile I already knew so well. She was wearing a black dress that she had probably bought to look serious and trustworthy, like a daughter concerned for her mother-in-law. "Claire, you look better," she said as she sat down across from me. "Sarah told me you'd been doing very poorly." "I've had better days," I replied, putting the weariness she expected to hear into my voice. Jessica opened her folder with efficient movements, like an executive presenting a project. There were papers, photographs of my burned house, brochures for retirement homes, and something that froze my blood, a legal document that looked like it was already partially filled out. "I've been working very hard to help you. First, I spoke with 3 different residences. This is the one I liked the most." She showed me a colorful brochure with photos of smiling seniors, playing cards, doing gentle exercises. It's called Golden Sunset, and they have a comprehensive program: balanced meals, recreational activities, 24-hour medical care. A gilded prison. That's what it was. "Jessica, it looks very institutional." "Oh no. It's very modern, very comfortable. And the best part is, you don't have to worry about a thing. They take care of everything." They take care of everything. Including, I supposed, not letting me leave whenever I wanted. And how am I going to pay for something like that? It must be very expensive. Jessica smiled as if she had been waiting for that question. "That's where the second part of my plan comes in. Claire, your land is worth a lot of money, much more than you can imagine." She pulled out some aerial photographs of my property and some documents that looked like real estate appraisals. "With the sale of the land, you can pay for the residence for the rest of your life and even have money left over for other expenses." "Have you already found out how much it's worth?" "Yes. Brenda, the real estate agent you met, did an appraisal. It's valued at almost $100,000. $100,000. It was a lot of money, but I knew that my land, located in an area that was developing rapidly, was probably worth twice that." "Jessica, that seems very low for a lot that large in that location." "Claire, you have to be realistic. The lot has the debris from the house. It's going to need to be cleared. There are some issues with the paperwork. Brenda says it's a fair price considering the circumstances." Issues with the paperwork. How convenient that Jessica had already identified problems that could justify selling below the real price. And who is going to buy the land? Brenda already has an interested client, a construction company that wants to develop a housing project in the area. Everything was perfectly orchestrated. Jessica had found the buyer. She had set the price. She had chosen my new home. And she had even prepared the legal documents. "Jessica, this is a lot to process. Can I think about it for a few days?" "Of course, but don't take too long. Brenda's client is considering other lots, and the residence also has a waiting list." Time pressure, the oldest trick in the book to force hasty decisions. Jessica took out the legal document I had seen at the beginning. "While you think about it, Michael and I prepared this to make things easier for you." It was a power of attorney, a document that would give Jessica legal control over all my financial decisions. "It's just to help you with the paperwork, Claire. You know how these bureaucratic things are. They're going to ask you for 1,000 papers. You're going to have to go to a lot of offices. This way, Michael and I can take care of everything while you recover from the trauma. While I recover from the trauma, as if I were a mental invalid incapable of handling my own affairs." "I don't know, Jessica. I've never signed anything like this. It's completely normal. Many people your age do it. It's for your own good. For my own good." The 4 most dangerous words that exist when spoken by someone who doesn't love you. Let me take it with me to read it over carefully. "Sure, but remember that the notary is only available this week. After that, he's on vacation for a month." More time pressure. When the meeting ended, Jessica gave me a hug that felt like the embrace of a snake. "Claire, I know this is difficult, but you'll see that it's for the best. You'll be much better cared for, without any worries. Without any worries because I would have no control over anything in my life." That afternoon, at Arthur's house, I showed him all the documents Jessica had given me. Arthur reviewed them with the attention of someone who had handled corporate contracts for decades. "Claire, this is worse than we thought." "What did you find?" "First, The appraisal of the land is completely manipulated. Your property is worth at least $200,000, not 100. Second, this residence they showed you costs exactly the amount they're going to give you for the land. You won't have any money left over. And the power of attorney? That's the most dangerous part. With this document, Jessica can sell your land, manage your money, even make medical decisions for you. You basically become her legal ward. Arthur showed me the most problematic clauses in the document. In small print and technical language, the power of attorney gave Jessica total control over my life. And if I refused to sign? That's where the most sinister part of her plan comes in. Look at this. Arthur showed me one of the residence's brochures. In the fine print on the back, there was a section about residents with limited cognitive abilities. Jessica is preparing the ground to have you declared mentally incompetent. If you refuse to sign, she'll probably say you're confused, that the trauma of the fire has affected your judgment. Can she do that? With the help of the psychologist she's already consulted and a few witnesses who say you've been acting strange, yes, she can request a mental competency evaluation. It was a perfect plan. If I cooperated, Jessica would get my money legally. If I resisted, she would have me declared crazy and get my money anyway. But Jessica had made one mistake. She had assumed that I was the same naive woman she had met years ago. She didn't know that I now had resources, allies, and above all, that I knew exactly what she was doing. Arthur, it's time for Jessica and Michael to find out who they really messed with. What do you have in mind? I'm going to sign the power of attorney. Arthur looked at me with alarm. Claire, are you sure about what you're saying? Completely sure. But I'm going to sign it with a few modifications that Jessica won't notice until it's too late. That night, Arthur and his lawyer prepared a modified version of the power of attorney. On the outside, it looked exactly like the original document, but inside, there were clauses that automatically invalidated the power if fraud was proven, and others that allowed me to revoke it at any time without prior notice. Jessica thought she had me in checkmate, but she was about to find out that I knew how to play chess too. The day I signed the power of attorney, Jessica couldn't hide her satisfaction. She arrived at the notary's office with Michael, both dressed as if they were going to an important ceremony. My son was wearing the suit I had given him for his birthday the year before, but he avoided looking me in the eye. "Mom, you're doing the right thing," he told me while we waited in the notary's office. "Jessica has worked very hard to organize everything." Jessica reviewed the documents one more time, making sure everything was in order. What she didn't know was that I had studied every line of the modified document all night. Arthur's lawyer had done an impeccable job. On the outside, it was exactly the same paper Jessica had prepared, but inside, it contained protections she would never imagine. "Are you sure about this, Claire?" the notary asked me, fulfilling his legal obligation to verify that I understood what I was signing. "Completely sure," I replied with the broken voice of a defeated woman. "I can't handle these things on my own anymore." Jessica smiled and put her hand on Michael's shoulder. It was the gesture of a woman who had just won the lottery. I signed the document with a trembling hand, feigning the fragility they expected to see. When I finished, Jessica practically snatched the papers from my hands. "Don't worry about anything else, Claire. Michael and I will take care of everything." That afternoon, while Jessica and Michael were celebrating their victory, I was at Arthur's house coordinating the next phase of our plan. Robert, the private investigator, had obtained crucial information. "Mrs. Claire, I have important news. The fire marshal completed the investigation of the fire, and they found clear evidence that it was arson. Traces of accelerant at multiple points in the house, burn patterns that indicate intentional use of flammable chemicals. It was the confirmation we needed. My house had been deliberately set on fire." "Is there more?" "Yes. We reviewed the security cameras in the area. Your son and Jessica were at your house the night before the fire, after 11 o'clock at night." My heart stopped. It was one thing to suspect, quite another to have proof. "Did the camera record them?" "Perfectly. We see them entering your property with bags and leaving 2 hours later without the bags." Arthur took my hand while Robert showed us the images on his computer. There they were, clear as day. My son and his wife, entering my house like thieves in the night, carrying the materials they would use to destroy my home. Is this enough to prosecute them? More than enough. But there's something else you need to know. Robert took other documents from his folder. I investigated Jessica and Michael's finances. They have debts of over $500,000, credit cards, bank loans. They even owe money to private lenders. $500,000. It was exactly the amount they planned to get after selling my land below its real value. And has Jessica already started the process to sell? This morning, 2 hours after signing the power of attorney, she was already at Brenda's office preparing the sale. Jessica had wasted no time. Now that she had legal control over my affairs, she had rushed to turn my tragedy into her financial salvation. But what Jessica didn't know was that I had also been busy that morning. While she was rushing to sell my land, I had gone to the bank with Arthur and transferred all my savings to a new account that Jessica didn't know about. While she was celebrating having legal control over my finances, I had moved all my money out of her reach. And most importantly, I had activated the secret clauses of the power of attorney. Arthur's lawyer had contacted the authorities and presented evidence of the fraud. In legal terms, the power of attorney was invalidated from the moment Jessica tried to use it to commit a crime. That night, Jessica called me euphoric. "Claire, I have wonderful news. The buyer accepted our offer. We can close the sale next week. So soon? Yes, they're very interested. And I've already reserved your spot at Golden Sunset. You can move in next month." Next month. Jessica had my life completely planned out. By next month, I would be locked up in a residence while she enjoyed the money she had obtained by burning down my house. Jessica, what if I change my mind? There was a silence on the other end of the line. Then, Jessica spoke with a voice I had never heard before. Cold, calculating, threatening. "Claire, you already signed the power of attorney. You can't change your mind anymore. I make the decisions now, and I've decided this is what's best for you. And if I don't want to go to the residence, then we'll have to talk to the doctor about your mental state. Sarah already told me you've been very confused, saying strange things about the fire. Michael and I are worried about you." There it was, the threat I had been waiting for. If I didn't cooperate, Jessica would use my mental confusion to justify locking me up against my will. "Jessica, are you threatening me?" "I'm not threatening you, Claire. I'm protecting you. From yourself." When I hung up the phone, Arthur was looking at me with admiration. "You just got her to confess. Everything. Over the phone." "How?" "Robert has been recording all your calls since yesterday. We have Jessica admitting that she's going to use your supposed mental confusion to control you. Admitting that you can no longer change your mind about decisions that affect your life. It was the last piece of the puzzle. We now had evidence of the arson, evidence of financial fraud, and evidence that Jessica planned to have me declared incompetent to maintain control over my life. When do we act?" Arthur smiled with that smile that reminded me why I had fallen for him decades ago. "Tomorrow. Tomorrow, Jessica and Michael are going to get the surprise of their lives." That night I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because my problems were over, but because I was finally going to get justice. Jessica and Michael had played with me as if I were a helpless old woman. They had burned my house. They had tried to steal my money. They had planned to lock me up for the rest of my life. But they had forgotten something fundamental. The woman they were trying to destroy had been successful long before she met them. She had built a life. She had worked. She had learned to fight. And now, I was going to remind them who Claire really was. The morning of the confrontation dawned with a clear sky, as if even the universe knew it was a day for justice. Jessica had summoned everyone to the notary's office to sign the sale of the land. She arrived early, as she always did when she was in a hurry to get something, accompanied by Michael and Brenda, the real estate agent. I arrived a few minutes later, feigning the fragility of a defeated woman. I was wearing the black dress I had worn to my husband's funeral, my most comfortable shoes, and a small purse, as if I didn't have many important possessions. Jessica saw me and smiled with that satisfaction I knew so well. "Claire, I'm so glad you came. Today is a very important day for your future." What Jessica didn't know was that Arthur was parked outside with Robert, waiting for my signal. What she didn't know was that the lawyer had already presented all the evidence to the authorities. What she didn't know was that her perfect day was about to turn into her worst nightmare. "Good morning, Jessica. Good morning, son." Michael greeted me with a kiss on the cheek that felt like a betrayal. For all those years, he had been my boy, my only son, the center of my world. But now, watching him prepare to rob me, I realized that he had long ceased to be my son and had become Jessica's accomplice. Brenda spread all the documents on the notary's table. The sales contract, the transfer papers, the bank documents specifying that Jessica would receive the money as my legal representative. "All right, Claire, we just need you to sign here, here, and here," Brenda said, pointing to the lines marked with small X's. "Are you sure the price is fair?" I asked, feigning one last doubt. Jessica tensed slightly. "Claire, we've already talked about this. Brenda is a professional. She knows what she's doing. It's just that $100,000 seems low for such a large piece of land." "Mom," Michael intervened with that condescending voice he had learned from Jessica. "You have to trust us. We're looking out for your future. Looking out for my future." As if locking me in a residence and stealing my assets was an act of filial love. I took the pen and pretended I was going to sign. At that moment, my phone rang. It was the signal I had arranged with Arthur. "Sorry, this is important. It's from the hospital where my husband worked. Something about his benefits." I answered the phone and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "What was that? You're saying my land is valued at $200,000? That someone submitted false documents?" Jessica turned pale instantly. Brenda stopped smiling. Michael looked at me with confusion. "What are they saying?" Jessica tried to take the phone from me. "Claire, you're confused." "I'm not confused, Jessica. For the first time in months, I see everything with perfect clarity." At that moment, Arthur entered the office accompanied by Robert and 2 police officers. Jessica recoiled as if she had seen a ghost. "Who is this man?" Jessica shouted. "Brenda, call security." "I am Arthur Cole," he said with that calm voice that had always reassured me. "I am Mrs. Claire's attorney, and I'm here to stop a fraud." "Fraud? What are you talking about?" Michael seemed genuinely confused. "Mom, what's going on?" Robert approached the table and placed a thick folder full of evidence on top of the sales documents. "Mrs. Jessica, you are under arrest for arson, real estate fraud, and attempted swindling. That's ridiculous," Jessica screamed, but her voice sounded desperate. "Claire is senile. She doesn't know what she's saying. We have video of you and Mr. Michael entering Mrs. Claire's property the night before the fire," Robert continued. "We have forensic evidence of the accelerant you used, and we have recordings of your conversations where you admit to the fraud." Michael sank into a chair as if his legs couldn't support him. "Mom, I didn't know that, Jessica." "Yes, you did know, Michael." I interrupted him with a voice I had never used with him before. "You were there when they burned my house. You were there when they closed the door in my face. You were there for every single lie. Jessica told me it was for the best, that you were losing your memory, that it was dangerous for you to live alone, and you believed her because it was convenient for you to believe her." Jessica tried to run for the door, but one of the police officers stopped her. As they put the handcuffs on her, she looked at me with a hatred I didn't know she was capable of feeling. "This isn't over. I'm going to prove you're crazy. No one is going to believe a senile old woman. The problem, Jessica, is that no one is going to believe you anymore." Arthur came over to me and took my hand in front of everyone. It was the first time we had publicly shown that we had a relationship that went beyond the professional. "Claire, are you okay?" "I'm perfect." As they took Jessica away in handcuffs, Brenda was trying to explain to the police that she knew nothing about the fraud, that she was just doing her job. Michael remained seated in the chair, his head in his hands, crying like a child. "Mom, forgive me. I didn't know it would go this far. Michael, you burned my house, not Jessica alone. You, my son, burned down the house where I raised you." "But," Jessica said a lot of things, but you made the decisions." I walked over to where he was sitting and knelt down to be at his level, as I had done so many times when he was a child and needed comfort. "Son, for 35 years, I was your mother before anything else. I put your well-being before my own. Your happiness before mine. I worked, I sacrificed, I saved every penny thinking about your future. I know, Mom. No, you don't know. Because if you did, you would never have agreed to take away my home, my dignity, my freedom. Michael cried harder, but I no longer felt sorry for him. For weeks I had cried, feeling betrayed and abandoned. Now it was his turn to face the consequences of his decisions. Will you forgive me? The question I had been waiting for, the question all mothers fear having to answer one day. Michael, forgiveness is something that is earned, not something that is given away. And you have a lot of work to do before you earn it. Arthur helped me up, and we walked out of the office together. Outside, Sarah was waiting for us. She had come to support me on what she knew would be a difficult day. How do you feel? She asked me. Free. For the first time in months, I feel completely free. That afternoon, Arthur and I went to dinner at an elegant restaurant downtown. We toasted with a glass of wine to justice, to truth, and to new beginnings. What are you going to do now? He asked me. I'm going to rebuild my house. But this time, I'm going to build it exactly the way I want it. And us? What's going to happen with us? I looked him in the eyes. This man who had appeared in my life like a guardian angel when I needed him most. Arthur, I'm 63 years old. I don't have time for games or for doing things out of obligation anymore. If we're going to be together, it's going to be because we really want to build something beautiful. He smiled and took my hand across the table. Claire, I've waited decades for this opportunity. I'm not going to waste it. 1 year later, I am sitting in the garden of my new house, drinking chamomile tea while I watch the sunrise paint the mountains in golden colors. The house I rebuilt is nothing like the old one. It's smaller, brighter, with large windows that let in all the possible light. Each room was designed with my comfort, my needs, and what I really want for this stage of my life in mind. Arthur is still asleep. He moved in with me 6 months ago, after a marriage proposal he made to me in this very garden, among the hydrangea flowers I planted in honor of my late husband. It wasn't a traditional marriage, but a union of two mature people who decided to share the time they have left with honesty and true affection. Jessica is serving an 8-year sentence for arson and fraud. Michael received 5 years, but with the possibility of parole for cooperating with the investigation. For the first few months, I tried to visit him in prison, but each meeting ended with him blaming me for his situation, saying that if I had been more understanding, more flexible, none of this would have happened. The last time I saw him, 4 months ago, he said something that finally freed me from any remaining guilt. Mom, Jessica was right. You're selfish. You only think about yourself. That sentence hurt me for days. Not because it was true, but because it confirmed something I already knew. My son had chosen to be his wife's accomplice to the very end. There was no real remorse, no understanding of the harm he had done me, only self-pity and resentment. I decided not to visit him again. The sale of my old house's land was completed at its real price, $210,000. With that money, plus the insurance that finally paid out, and the investments Arthur helped me make, I have financial security for the rest of my life. But more important than the money is the peace of mind I've found. Sarah comes over for lunch with me every Tuesday. We've developed a deeper friendship since what happened, based on the understanding that women our age have to look out for each other. She never asks about Michael, and I appreciate that. Some wounds need time to heal, and constantly talking about them only keeps them open. My doorbell rarely rings. I have few visitors, and I like it that way. But this morning I hear the familiar sound, and from the window I see a car I don't recognize parked in my driveway. Arthur wakes up with the noise and walks to the door with me. On the other side of the glass is a young woman, about 25 years old, with the brown hair and green eyes of my family. She's holding a baby who can't be more than 6 months old. It's Emily, Michael's daughter, my granddaughter. I haven't seen her in 2 years. Jessica had always been very jealous of my relationship with her, and after the marriage, she had practically cut off all contact. During the trial, Emily didn't show up to support her father or Jessica. She simply disappeared from our lives. "Grandma," she says when I open the door, and her voice sounds exactly like Michael's when he was a child. "Emily, can I come in? I want you to meet my son." Arthur gently squeezes my hand, reminding me that I have the power to decide who enters my life and who doesn't. It's a lesson I've learned well this year. Why are you here now? Because I needed time to process everything, to understand what happened, and because I want you to know that I never agreed with what they did. Did you know what they were planning? Emily looks down. I knew Mom talked a lot about your house, about you being too old to live alone, but I never thought they would go that far. And why didn't you warn me? Because I was scared. Because it was easier to believe that Mom had good intentions. Her honesty touches me. She's not trying to completely justify herself. She's not blaming others for her silence. She's admitting she was scared, that she took the easy way out. Emily, I understand you were scared, but your silence cost me my house, my security, my trust in my own family. I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I want to try to rebuild our relationship, if you'll let me. I look at the baby in her arms. He's beautiful, with that perfect skin that only newborns have, and a serene expression that reminds me of Michael as a baby. What's his name? Leo, after Grandpa, after my husband. Emily named her son after my husband. His father? He's not in our lives. I decided to raise Leo on my own, a single mother, as I had been for so many years after being widowed. A young woman facing the world with a baby in her arms and no family support. Where do you live? In a small apartment near downtown. I work in an accounting office. Accounting? As I had worked, as I had met Arthur. Arthur whispers in my ear, "The decision is yours, Claire. But remember that grandchildren are not to blame for their parents' mistakes." He's right. Leo is not to blame for what Michael and Jessica did. And Emily, although she didn't defend me when she could have, did not actively participate in the betrayal. You can come in, but I want you to understand something, Emily. Whatever you need to tell me. This house is my sanctuary. It's the place where I've found peace after everything I've been through. If you're going to be a part of my life again, it has to be with complete honesty. No secrets, no divided loyalties. I promise you it will be. Emily comes in with her baby, and Arthur makes coffee for everyone. We sit in the living room, and for the first time in 2 years, I have my granddaughter in my house. Leo wakes up and starts to cry, and I automatically extend my arms to hold him. It's amazing how the muscle memory of being a grandmother comes back immediately. Leo calms down in my arms, and I feel that instant connection that only exists between grandmothers and grandchildren. "Grandma, can you tell me what really happened?" Dad and Jessica told me one version, but after the trial, I realized there were lies in everything. For the next hour, I tell her the whole truth. I tell her about Jessica's manipulations, about the arson, about the night they closed the door in my face. Emily cries when I tell her the hardest details, especially when I explain how I felt when I discovered that my own son had participated in destroying my life. "Do you think Dad can change?" "I don't know, Emily. And it's no longer my responsibility to help him change. He has to make that decision for himself. And me? Do you think I can earn your trust again?" I look at this young woman who carries my blood, who is raising my great-grandson alone, who had the courage to come find me after 2 years of silence. I think you've already started to earn it. You came here. You told me the truth. And you brought Leo for me to meet. That means more than you can imagine. Emily comes to visit me every Sunday now. She brings Leo, who is bigger and more alert every week. Arthur has developed a special relationship with him, and sometimes I find them in the garden, Arthur reading him stories, while Leo looks at him with that absolute attention that only babies have. Last month, Emily asked if she could spend Christmas with me. It was the first time in years that someone had asked to share an important date with me out of a genuine desire to be with me, not out of family obligation. We spent a beautiful Christmas. Arthur cooked a turkey. I made my famous apple pie, and Emily brought gifts for everyone. Leo had more fun with the gift boxes than with the toys, and we all laughed watching his antics. At night, after Emily had left, Arthur and I sat in the garden watching the stars. "Are you happy?" he asked. "I am happy," I replied, without hesitation. But it's a different kind of happiness than I knew before. Different. How? Before, my happiness depended on making others happy. Now, my happiness depends on being at peace with myself. Arthur kissed my forehead with a tenderness that reminds me every day why it's worth starting over at 63. This morning, as I write in my journal about this year of rebuilding, I know my story is not unique. There are many women my age who have been betrayed by families who see them as a burden, who have lost everything they built over decades of work and sacrifice. But I also know that there is hope, that it's never too late to reclaim your life, to set boundaries, to decide who deserves to be in your world and who doesn't. Jessica and Michael thought they had defeated me. They thought I was a weak woman, without resources, without options. But they were wrong. Not only did I survive their betrayal, but I found a better life on the other side of the pain. Now, when I see the sunrise from my garden, I don't think about what I lost. I think about what I gained: my dignity, my freedom, and the understanding that I deserve true love at any stage of my life. Michael gets out of prison next year. I don't know if he will try to contact me. If he does, I'm prepared for that conversation. But I am no longer the woman I was 2 years ago. I am stronger, wiser, and above all, I am a woman who has finally learned to put herself first. Leo babbles from his crib, and Arthur is waking up. It's time to begin another day in this life I built from the ashes of the old one, a life that is completely my own. I stood there frozen in the hotel lobby, watching my own children laugh as they walked away toward the elevator, without a single glance back. Jessica, my daughter-in-law, had said something about finally getting rid of the burden, and they had all laughed. They didn't know I had heard every word. They didn't know I had paid every single cent for that reservation with the money I saved over 8 months, selling my pies on Sundays at the farmer's market and stashing every coin in a cookie tin I hid behind the cans of beans. They also didn't know what I was about to do. But let's go back to the beginning, because it all started 3 weeks earlier, on a Tuesday afternoon when the warm sun streamed through my kitchen window. I was making my afternoon coffee, just like I did every day since I was widowed 4 years ago, when my phone rang. It was Michael, my oldest son, using that sweet voice he always used when he needed something. "Mom, I have a wonderful idea," he said, and I felt that little flutter in my chest that always came when my children included me in their plans. "What do you think about a family trip for the holidays? All of us together, just like the old days." His voice sounded so excited I could almost see his smile through the phone. "I found a beautiful resort on the coast, pools, restaurants, activities for the kids. It would be perfect, Mom." I put the coffee pot down on the counter, feeling my eyes well up with tears of joy. It had been so long since I felt included, since I was invited to anything more than family dinners where I sat in silence while they talked about their jobs, their trips, their plans. I was always the one who served, who cleared the plates, who stayed in the kitchen while everyone else went to the living room. "That sounds wonderful, honey," I replied, trying to keep my voice from breaking. "When would it be?" "The first week of January. 7 days, Mom. Imagine it. All of us, me and Jessica, David and Lauren, the grandkids, and you, of course, like one big, happy family." He paused and then added, "There's just one small detail, Mom. The resort requires one person to make the reservation. Could you take care of it? We'll transfer you the money later, of course. It was always like that. I was the one to put my name down, to provide the guarantee, to handle the paperwork while they enjoyed themselves. But this time, I didn't care. It was a chance to do something special for my family, to show them how much I loved them. Of course, son, count on me." That same afternoon, I called the resort. The receptionist had a kind, professional voice. "The Cypress Point Resort. How may I help you?" "I'd like to make a reservation for 12 people, I said, feeling my heart race. I had never organized something so big. "Perfect, ma'am." "For what dates?" "From January 2nd to January 9th. I heard the clicking of her keyboard. "Very well. That would be 5 family suites, all inclusive, with access to all activities. The total will be $4,200. My breath caught in my throat. $4,200. My Social Security check was $300 a month. I had saved $1,800 selling pies for 8 months. I didn't have enough. "Ma'am, are you still there?" Yes, I'm sorry. Can I confirm the reservation and pay later?" "We require a 50% deposit to confirm, ma'am. $2,100. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my rocking chair, calculating and recalculating. I had $1,800 in cash, some savings I had put aside for emergencies, and my wedding ring, the ring my husband had given me 42 years ago, with a small diamond that sparkled in the light. The next day, I went to the downtown pawn shop. Mr. Harrison, the owner, was an older man who knew the whole family. "Estella, how are you?" "I'm well, Mr. Harrison." I came to ask, "How much would you give me for this ring?" He examined it with his loupe, turning it between his wrinkled fingers. "It's a fine piece, Estella. I can give you $800. It felt like I had been punched in the stomach. $800 for 42 years of marriage. But I thought of Michael's smile, of the possibility of having my whole family together. Happy. It's a deal. With the money from the ring and my savings, I called the resort that same afternoon and paid the deposit. The reservation was confirmed in my name, with my credit card as a guarantee. 5 family suites, 12 people, 7 days, all inclusive. Over the next few weeks, every time I spoke with Michael or David, they asked about the trip details, but they never mentioned the money. "We'll talk about that later," they'd say. "The important thing is that we're all together." I kept selling pies on Sundays, doing sewing work for the neighbors, saving every dollar I could to make the final payment. My house grew colder because I turned down the heat. I ate less meat, walked instead of taking the city bus. All for this perfect family trip. 3 days before the trip, Michael called me, excited. "Mom, you have no idea how much we're looking forward to this. The kids are so excited. Jessica has everything packed. How are the resort preparations going?" "Everything's ready, son. Just the final payment is left." "Oh, right, of course. Well, we'll figure that out. The important thing is that we have fun." The night before the trip, I finished paying for the full reservation with my credit card. $4,200. All of my wedding ring, all of my savings, plus the debt now on my card. But it was worth it. I was going to have 7 perfect days with my family. I had no idea what I was about to discover. The morning of the trip, I woke up before dawn. I had packed my suitcase the night before, folding each item with care, choosing my best dresses, the pearl necklace that had been my mother's, the comfortable shoes for walking on the beach. I felt like a child before Christmas. It had been so long since I'd had something to look forward to with such excitement. Michael was supposed to pick me up at 7 in the morning. We had agreed to travel together in 2 cars to the resort, which was 3 hours away. I put on my light blue dress, the one David always said made me look younger, and carefully applied my makeup. I wanted to look good for the family photos we would surely take. At 7:30, Michael honked from the street. I grabbed my suitcase, locked the house, and walked to the car with a smile I couldn't wipe off my face. In the passenger seat was Jessica, my daughter-in-law, scrolling through her phone. In the back, my 2 youngest grandchildren were playing on a tablet. "Good morning, family," I said as I got in, but only the children answered with a cheerful, "Hi, Grandma." Distracted, Jessica barely glanced up for a second and mumbled something that sounded like a greeting. Michael started the engine. "Are you all ready for the perfect family vacation?" I asked, trying to start a cheerful conversation. "Yeah, Mom," Michael replied, but his voice sounded tired. "Jessica, did you text Lauren to have them follow us?" "They already left. David drives like a turtle, so we'll probably get there before them," Jessica answered, without looking up from her phone. During the drive, I tried several times to make conversation. I asked about Michael's work, about their plans for the days at the resort, about whether the kids knew how to swim. The answers were monosyllabic, sighs, half smiles that faded quickly. Jessica never stopped texting and would occasionally laugh at something she read on her screen. "Is it very funny?" I asked once, trying to be included in whatever was entertaining her so much. "It's my friend's group chat," she replied without looking at me. "Stuff you wouldn't understand." I stayed quiet after that, looking out the window at the passing fields, the small houses, the trees just beginning to change color. I thought about all the pies I had sold to pay for this trip, the nights I had stayed up sewing to earn a few extra dollars, my wedding ring that was now in a pawn shop safe. When we arrived at the resort, it took my breath away. It was more beautiful than I had imagined from the pictures online: tall palm trees swaying in the sea breeze, perfectly manicured gardens with flowers of every color, a white facade that gleamed under the midday sun. The entrance had water fountains that created a soothing sound, and you could hear the ocean in the distance. "What a beautiful place!" I exclaimed, my chest swelling with joy. "I can't believe we're here." The kids jumped out of the car excitedly, running toward the entrance. Michael and Jessica started getting the suitcases out of the trunk. Just then, the second car arrived with David, Lauren, and the rest of the family. Chloe, my 17-year-old granddaughter, was the only one who came over to hug me. "Grandma, this place is incredible," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. "Did you see the pool? It's huge. And they say they have nightly activities and themed restaurants." "I know, sweetie. It's going to be a wonderful week," I replied, stroking her hair. At least someone shared my enthusiasm. We all entered the lobby, and I went to the reception desk. It was a spacious, elegant area with marble floors that reflected the light from crystal chandeliers, white leather sofas, and tropical plants in enormous pots. The air smelled of fresh flowers and sea breeze. "Good morning," I said to the receptionist, a young woman with a friendly smile. "I have a reservation under the name Estela Morales." She typed on her computer and smiled. "Of course, Mrs. Morales, we were expecting you. 5 family suites, 7 nights, all inclusive for 12 people. Everything is in order." As she prepared the key cards and explained the resort services, I heard my sons talking in low voices behind me. "5 suites?" I heard David whisper to Michael. "I thought you said it would be simpler." "Mom organized everything," Michael replied. "We'll figure out how to split the costs later." The receptionist handed me the key cards in elegant holders shaped like a palm tree. "The suites are on the 3rd floor, all with an ocean view. Breakfast is served from 6 to 10 in the morning in the main restaurant, lunch from noon to 3 in the afternoon, and dinner from 6 to 10 at night. You also have full access to the spa, the pools, sports activities, and nightly entertainment." "How wonderful!" I exclaimed, my heart pounding with excitement. "Did you hear that, everyone? We have access to everything." But when I turned around to share my joy with my family, I froze. There was no one there. Michael, David, Jessica, Lauren, and all the grandchildren had disappeared. Only Chloe remained, looking at me with a strange expression on her face. "Where is everyone?" I asked, a sinking feeling in my stomach. "They went toward the elevators," she replied, biting her lower lip. "Dad said they were going to get settled in the rooms and that we'd meet up later." "Without waiting for me? Without the keys?" Chloe didn't answer, but I saw in her eyes that there was something she wasn't telling me. We walked toward the elevator area, but there was no sign of the family. We went up to the 3rd floor and walked down the hallway looking for them, but it was as if they had vanished. "Chloe, what is going on here?" I asked, my voice trembling. She sighed and took out her phone. "Grandma, there's something you need to know. They're in a family group chat, and—" She stopped, as if it was hard for her to continue. "What group chat?" "The one Dad, Uncle Michael, Mom, and Aunt Jessica made. It's called Drama-Free Vacation." Her voice got smaller. "Grandma, they didn't want you to come on the trip." I felt as if the marble floor was shifting beneath my feet. "What do you mean they didn't want me to come?" "But Michael invited me. He asked me to organize everything." Chloe showed me her phone with trembling hands. On the screen, I could see the group chat. The most recent messages broke my heart into a million pieces. "We're here. The old lady took care of everything, as usual. Perfect. Now we can enjoy ourselves without her watching over us all the time. Did you see how excited she got at reception? How embarrassing. Well, at least she's useful for something. Let her stay in her room watching television while we have fun." The words blurred in front of my eyes. I felt them fill with tears, felt my throat tighten. $4,200. My wedding ring. 8 months of work. All so they could enjoy themselves. Without drama, without me. "Grandma." Chloe's voice sounded very far away. "Grandma, are you okay?" No, I wasn't okay. But I wasn't finished, either. I stood there in the hotel hallway, with the 5 key cards dangling from my trembling fingers, while Chloe looked at me with tears in her eyes. The messages in the group chat kept coming, each one like a knife straight to the heart. "I hope she doesn't get difficult about the family meals." "Relax, Jessica. If she gets unbearable, we'll just tell her she's tired and should go rest. The important thing is that the kids have fun. She can do her own thing. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The hallway smelled of cleaning supplies and fresh flowers, but all I could taste was the bitter humiliation in my mouth. For 40 years, I had raised those sons. I had sacrificed my dreams for theirs. I had sold my wedding ring to give them this perfect vacation, and this is how they repaid me. "Chloe," I said, in a voice I didn't even recognize, "how long has this group existed?" She looked at her phone, scrolling up to see older messages. Since Uncle Michael proposed the trip to you, Grandma. Look, it says here he created it the same day he called you." My granddaughter showed me the screen. There it was, clear as day. Group created on December 12th by Michael Davis. The same day my son had called me with his sweet voice to invite me on the family trip of my dreams. I kept reading the older messages, each one worse than the last. "Just talk to Mom. She bought it hook, line, and sinker. She's sure she can handle organizing it. You know how she is with technology. Doesn't matter. If she messes up, we'll fix it. The important thing is that she pays for it. Awesome. Free vacation and no family drama. But seriously, no group activities. Everyone does their own thing." The words were becoming a blur through the tears I could no longer hold back. But there was something more recent messages that made me understand the full extent of their betrayal. "Did you confirm that the resort allows changes to the reservation?" "Yeah," David had asked at the front desk. "Since it's in Mom's name, she can make modifications." "Perfect. Tomorrow we'll convince her to transfer the rooms to our names, just in case. And on the last day, we'll tell her there was an error with the bill, that the hotel needs someone else to take over the payment." There it was. Not only had they planned to ignore me during the trip, but they also intended to leave me with the entire debt at the end. They had used me to organize and pay for their perfect vacation, and then they were going to abandon me with the bill. "Grandma," Chloe touched my arm gently, "what are you going to do?" That question echoed in my mind. What was I going to do? The old Estella would have cried in silence, would have swallowed the humiliation, would have pretended she hadn't seen anything. She would have spent the 7 days locked in her room, ordering room service so as not to bother the family in the restaurants, watching television while they enjoyed the pool, the spa, the nightlife that I had paid for. But something had changed inside me. Maybe it was watching my wedding ring disappear into the pawnbroker's hands. Or maybe it was those 8 months of waking up before dawn to bake pies and sell them at the market. Maybe it was realizing that my own sons saw me as a walking wallet, useful for paying and organizing, but an annoyance to include. "I don't know yet, sweetie," I answered Chloe, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. "But I'm not going to just stand here and cry." We walked to my suite. It was beautiful, with a king-size bed covered in pristine white sheets, a balcony with a direct view of the ocean, a marble bathroom with a deep tub, everything I had dreamed of for months while I saved penny by penny. But now it felt empty, like a stage set for a play in which I was only the financier, not the star. I sat on the bed, and Chloe stood by the window, looking toward the beach where I could already see some of the family. Michael and David were in the pool with their sons. Jessica and Lauren were sipping cocktails under an umbrella, all of them laughing and enjoying themselves as if nothing had happened. "Do you know what hurts the most?" I said to Chloe. "It's not the money, it's not even that they lied to me. It's that I thought we were finally going to be a real family, that we were going to make beautiful memories together." Chloe turned around, and I saw her eyes were red. "Grandma, I tried to tell them it was wrong. When Dad added me to the group, I told them it wasn't fair to you, but they said I didn't understand, that adults sometimes have to make tough decisions." "Tough decisions? Is that what I am to them? A tough decision?" Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Michael. "Mom, we've settled in. We're heading to the beach restaurant for lunch. If you want, you can order room service. See you at dinner." He didn't even invite me to lunch, didn't even pretend he wanted my company. I got up from the bed and walked to the balcony. The ocean stretched out, infinite, before me. The waves lapped gently at the shore, and a warm breeze stirred the white curtains of the room. It was exactly as I had pictured it during all those months of sacrifice, but my family wasn't there to enjoy it with me. "Chloe," I said without turning around, "did you know that I paid for all of this?" "What do you mean? You paid for everything?" "The reservation. All of it. $4,200. I sold your grandfather's wedding ring to pay the deposit. I heard her sharp intake of breath. Grandma, no. He didn't know. Dad always said they were going to split the cost among everyone. A lie. I paid for every cent. And they knew it. They knew I didn't have that kind of money. They knew I had to make sacrifices. And they still used me. I turned around and saw Chloe was crying. Grandma, this is so wrong. I have to tell my parents that. No, I interrupted her with a firmness that surprised even me. You're not going to say a word. Not yet. But what are you going to do? I looked toward the beach one last time, where my family was enjoying the vacation I had given them without their knowledge. I thought of all the times they had made me feel invisible, all the occasions they had treated me like a piece of furniture, useful, but in the way. I'm going to think, I replied. And while I think, I'm going to act as if I never saw those messages, as if I know nothing. Why? For the first time in days, I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, but something colder, more calculated, because, my love, the best revenge is a dish best served cold, and I have a whole week to plan mine. That afternoon I stayed in my room, sitting in the armchair by the balcony, watching my family enjoy themselves on the beach. I had ordered room service as Michael had suggested, but the food sat untouched on the tray. I wasn't hungry. What I had was a mental clarity I hadn't felt in years. I took out my notebook, that little blue notebook where I jotted down my daily expenses, and started to write. First, all the details of the reservation, dates, prices, confirmations. Then, screenshots of the group chat messages Chloe had shown me. Everything documented, everything recorded with the precision of someone who has learned that in life, you can only trust what's on paper. While I wrote, my phone buzzed constantly. Messages from the official family group chat, the one that included my name, filled with photos of them at the pool, in the restaurant, on the beach. What a beautiful place, Mom. The kids are so happy. Thanks for organizing everything. Each message was like a slap in the face disguised as affection. But messages from the secret group kept coming too, the ones Chloe forwarded from her room. Each one confirmed what I already knew. I was just a means to an end. The old lady is being super quiet. Perfect. I hope she doesn't show up for dinner. The kids want to eat in peace. Tomorrow we'll ask her for the keys to the other rooms, in case we need some privacy. Privacy. As if my presence was a violation of their family intimacy. As if I wasn't their mother, their mother-in-law, their grandmother. Around 6 in the evening, Chloe knocked on my door. She was dressed for dinner in a floral dress, her hair pulled back. She looked beautiful, but her eyes still showed traces of the afternoon's tears. Grandma? Are you coming down for dinner? I don't know, sweetie. What do you think? She sat on the bed, nervously fidgeting with her hands. I think you should go down. Not because they deserve it, but because you paid for that dinner and you have a right to enjoy it. I smiled. My granddaughter was wiser than her family could ever imagine. You're right. I'm going down. I got ready carefully. I put on my black dress, the elegant one I'd bought especially for this trip at a second-hand shop, but that fit me perfectly. I put on makeup, my pearl earrings, and a little of the perfume that had been my mother's. If I was going to face my family, I would do it looking impeccable. The main restaurant was spectacular. Tables with white tablecloths, lit candles, enormous windows overlooking the ocean, where the setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. The kind of place I had dreamed of visiting for years, but never thought I could afford. When I arrived, my family was already seated at a large round table. Michael saw me first and waved me over, but his smile seemed forced. Mom, so glad you came down. We already ordered appetizers. I sat in the only empty chair, which was strategically placed with its back to the ocean view. A coincidence, of course. How was your afternoon, Estella? Lauren, my younger daughter-in-law, asked me with that sweet voice she used when people were around. Very quiet, I replied, pouring myself some water. I rested, read a little, enjoyed the view from my balcony. That's good, Jessica said without looking up from the menu. We were at the pool all day. The kids didn't want to get out of the water. It looks like they had a lot of fun, I commented, watching my grandchildren, who were tanned and happy. At least they were genuinely enjoying the trip. During dinner, the conversation flowed as if nothing had happened. They talked about the spa, the activities they had planned for the next day, the perfect weather, how delicious the food was. I nodded, smiled at the right moments, made occasional comments. But inside, I was taking mental notes of every detail. I noticed how David ordered the most expensive bottle of wine on the menu without consulting me, as if it were natural that I would be paying. I noticed how Jessica ordered 2 desserts to try and then only took 1 bite of each. I noticed how Michael told the kids to order whatever they wanted, no limits, because Grandma is treating us all. But what I noticed most was something that broke my heart. When one of my grandsons, little 8-year-old Leo, asked if we could build sandcastles together the next day, Jessica immediately intervened. "Honey, Grandma is too tired to be at the beach all day. You can play with your cousins instead." "But I want to play with Grandma," Leo insisted. "Older adults need more rest," Lauren said, patting his head. "You'll have time to play with Grandma when we get back home." Older adults, as if I were a relic in a museum, too fragile to participate in real life. "I'm 65, not 90. I can build sandcastles perfectly fine." "Actually," I said, with a smile I hoped looked natural, "I would love to build sandcastles with you, Leo. Tomorrow after breakfast, how does that sound?" I saw Jessica and Lauren exchange a quick glance. That silent communication of people used to manipulating situations. "Well, we'll see what the weather is like in the morning," Jessica finally said. After dinner, as we walked back toward the elevators, I heard David whisper to Lauren, "We'll go to the spa early tomorrow. Take the kids to the kiddie pool so they don't bother Mom. Early tomorrow." The same time I had arranged to meet Leo to build sandcastles. How convenient. In the elevator, Michael asked me, "Mom, do you need help with anything? The hotel papers? The key cards? Anything like that?" There it was. They were already starting their plan to take control of the reservation away from me. "No, son. Everything is perfect. I have it all under control. It's just that I thought maybe it would be easier if one of us handled the technical details, so you don't have to worry about a thing. I appreciate the offer, but it's really not necessary." I saw the flicker of frustration in his eyes for a split second before he smiled again. When I got to my room, Chloe was already waiting for me, sitting in the hallway. "How was dinner, Grandma?" "Educational," I replied, opening the door. "Very educational." We went inside and she sat in the armchair while I took off my shoes and left my purse on the table. "Grandma, I've been thinking all afternoon. What they're doing is so wrong, and I can't just stay quiet. Chloe, listen to me carefully. I know you have good intentions, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She nodded, though she looked confused. "Good. Then I want you to keep sending me the messages from the secret group, but I also want you to act completely normal. Don't let them know that I know anything." "But why?" I sat down across from her and took her hands. They were soft and young, without the wrinkles and scars that mine had after 65 years of work and sacrifice. "Because, my love, when someone betrays you, the worst thing you can do is confront them immediately. The best thing is to let them keep believing their plan is working while you prepare your own. You have a plan?" "I'm developing one." Chloe was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Grandma, have you ever felt anything like this before?" "Like what?" This anger, this huge disappointment." I looked toward the balcony, where the full moon was reflecting on the ocean waves. It was a beautiful, romantic view, the kind I would have enjoyed with my husband if he had lived to see it with me. "Only once," I replied, "when your grandfather died and I realized I would have to face the rest of my life alone. But this time is different." "Why?" "Because when your grandfather died, the pain was unavoidable. It was part of life. But this was a choice. My sons chose to hurt me, to use me, to betray me. And choices have consequences." That night, after Chloe went to her room, I stayed up very late. Not watching television or reading, but thinking, planning. For the first time in years, I felt powerful, because I had something they didn't know I had, information. And as my husband used to say, information is power. Tomorrow I would start using it. I woke up before dawn, just as I had for the past 8 months, when I would get up to bake pies to sell. But this time, It wasn't out of obligation, but from a strange sense of energy I hadn't felt in years. I made coffee with the in-room machine and sat on the balcony to watch the sun rise over the ocean, reviewing my notebook. At 7:30, my phone buzzed with a message from Chloe. It was a screenshot from the secret group chat, sent just a few minutes earlier. Plan for today: everyone to the spa at 9. Kids to the kiddie pool with the hotel babysitter. Lunch at the beach restaurant without the old lady. If she asks, we'll tell her a spontaneous plan came up. Perfect. And don't forget, today we ask for the keys to the other rooms. Any believable excuses? We'll say we need access in case of an emergency, or that the kids want to throw a surprise party in one of the suites. They couldn't even invent an original lie. But what bothered me most was the part about the babysitter. They had hired someone to watch my grandchildren instead of asking me, their own grandmother, to be with them. As if I were a dangerous stranger, instead of the woman who had raised them as babies when their parents had to work. At 8, I went down to the restaurant for breakfast. It was early, so there were few people. The place was beautiful in the morning, with golden sunlight streaming through the windows and the soft sound of waves in the background. I sat at a table by the window and ordered coffee, fresh fruit, and scrambled eggs. As I ate, I watched the other families. An older couple laughing as they shared croissants, their wrinkled hands intertwined on the table. A young family where the parents were feeding a baby while the grandmother held the older child on her lap, telling him stories that made him laugh. Real families, families that included each other. Families where grandparents were an integral part, not a burden to be tolerated. At 9 o'clock sharp, I saw my family heading toward the spa area. Michael, David, Jessica, and Lauren walked together, talking animatedly, while the kids ran ahead excitedly. None of them looked toward the restaurant where I was sitting. They didn't even wonder if I had eaten breakfast or if I was okay. I finished my coffee slowly, savoring every sip. Then I went up to my room and took out all the reservation documents I had brought with me. The hotel confirmation, payment receipts, a copy of my credit card, all organized in a folder I had meticulously prepared. At 10:30, I went down to reception. "Good morning, Mrs. Morales." The same receptionist from the day before greeted me. "How are you enjoying your stay?" "Very well, thank you." "I have a question. This reservation is entirely in my name and paid for with my credit card, correct?" She checked her computer. "That's right, ma'am. Everything is registered under your name. Estela Morales. 5 suites for 7 nights. All inclusive. All services included. Paid in full. And if I wanted to make changes to the reservation, would I have the authority to do so?" "Of course. As the primary name on the reservation and the one who made the payment, you have full control. Is there something you'd like to change?" "Not at the moment. I just wanted to confirm." "Another question. Is it possible to add a security note to the account so that any changes require my personal in-person authorization?" The receptionist looked at me with curiosity but nodded professionally. "Certainly. Would you like to add any specific instructions?" "Yes. I want it on record that I, Estela Morales, am the only person authorized to make changes to this reservation. No one else in my party can modify dates, services, or transfer rooms to another name without my physical presence and my identification." "Understood. I will add that to the system immediately." While she typed, I observed the lobby. It was early, but it was already busy. Guests heading to the beach, families planning their day, the hotel staff attending to everyone with professional smiles. Everything seemed normal and perfect, but I knew that in a few hours, when my family returned from the spa, they would try to execute their plan to take control from me. "All set, Mrs. Morales. Is there anything else I can help you with?" "One more thing. What is the hotel's cancellation policy?" "It depends on the type of reservation. In your case, having paid the full rate in advance, you can cancel up to 24 hours before final checkout without penalty. If you cancel with less notice, 1 night's stay would be withheld." "I understand. And if I decided to shorten the stay, would I be refunded for the unused nights?" "Yes, ma'am. You would be refunded the cost of the remaining nights, minus any applicable penalty." "Perfect. Thank you very much for the information." I went up to my room with a strange feeling. For the first time in months, I felt in control of something. I wasn't the helpless old woman my children thought I was. I was the name on the reservation, the one with all the decision-making power, the one who had paid every cent. At 11:30, Chloe knocked on my door. She was flustered, her hair damp with chlorine from the pool. "Grandma, I have to tell you something urgent." "What happened?" "I was at the kiddie pool with my cousins when I overheard Dad on the phone. He was talking to someone from the bank. My blood ran cold." "From the bank?" "Yes. He was asking about how to dispute a charge on a credit card. He said something about a hotel, about unauthorized expenses." Chloe sat on the bed, looking worried. "Grandma, I think they're going to say you made charges without the family's permission." The room started to spin. Not only did they want to ruin my vacation and take control of the reservation, but they were also planning to leave me with the entire debt and then dispute the charges so they wouldn't have to pay a thing. "Are you sure about what you heard?" "Completely." After the call, Dad went over to where Uncle Michael and my aunts were. I saw them talking in low voices, but I managed to hear Dad say, "It's in process. It should be resolved by tomorrow." Tomorrow. They had it all figured out. They probably planned to enjoy all the hotel services until the last day and then activate the charge dispute, leaving me not only humiliated but also bankrupt. I stood up and walked to the balcony. The ocean was still there, beautiful and indifferent to human dramas. The waves came and went with the same steady rhythm. But something had changed in me since yesterday. It wasn't just disappointment or sadness I felt anymore. It was something colder, more determined. "Chloe," I said without turning around, "do you trust me?" "Of course, Grandma." "Then I need you to do something for me. And it's very important that you don't tell anyone what I'm about to ask." "Anything." I turned and looked her directly in the eyes. "I want you to come to my room tonight, when everyone is asleep. We are going to have a very important conversation about the future of this family." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to teach them a lesson they will never forget." The phone rang at that moment. It was a message from the official family group chat. "Mom, we're having lunch on the beach. We saved you a spot if you want to come." Liars. I knew perfectly well they had planned to have lunch without me. But this time, instead of feeling hurt, I smiled. "Tell your father thank you very much, but I have other plans." And I wasn't lying. I did have other plans. Plans that were taking shape in my mind with a surprising clarity. That afternoon, while my family enjoyed themselves on the beach with the money I had paid, I made a few very important phone calls. First stop, my bank. Second stop, the hotel reception. Third stop, my lawyer. Because if my children thought they were going to play games with me, they were sorely mistaken. The game was just beginning. And this time, I was holding all the cards. That afternoon, while my family was having fun on the beach, believing they had found the perfect formula for a free vacation, I was in my room executing my own plan. I had learned over 65 years that patience is the most powerful weapon a woman can have, especially when she's underestimated. My first call was to the bank. After navigating a maze of automated options and waiting for 20 minutes, I finally managed to speak with a human representative. "National Bank, this is Carmen. How may I help you?" "Good morning, Carmen. My name is Estela Morales. I need to report a potential fraud attempt on my credit card." "Of course, Mrs. Morales. Can you provide me with your card number and date of birth to verify your identity?" After confirming my details, I explained the situation with the care of someone who has thought through every word. "Carmen, I have reason to believe that a member of my family is going to attempt to dispute legitimate charges I made on my card. Specifically, a hotel reservation for $4,200 that I authorized and paid for personally. I understand your concern, Mrs. Morales. Do you have any evidence of this potential fraudulent dispute?" "Yes, I have all the reservation documents, payment confirmations, and witnesses who can corroborate that I authorized all the expenses. Furthermore, my granddaughter overheard my son on the phone today discussing disputing these charges." Carmen took note of everything and explained the procedure. "I'm going to place a protection note on your account, Mrs. Morales. If anyone attempts to dispute those charges, an automatic investigation will be triggered that will require substantial evidence of actual fraud. In the meantime, the charges will remain valid until proven otherwise. I will also email you a form to document everything related to this potential family fraud attempt." After hanging up with the bank, I felt like I had won the first battle of a war that was just beginning, but I needed more ammunition. My second call was to the resort's front desk. "Good afternoon. Could I speak with the manager, please?" 5 minutes later, a man with a kind voice introduced himself. "Mrs. Morales, this is Miguel Hernandez, the resort manager. The receptionist tells me you wanted to speak with me." "Yes, Mr. Hernandez. I have a delicate family situation, and I need to ensure that certain information is officially recorded." I explained that I had paid for the entire reservation as a surprise for my family, but that I had discovered they were planning to fraudulently dispute the charges. "I understand perfectly, Mrs. Morales. Unfortunately, this is not the first time we've seen situations like this. What do you need from us?" "First, to confirm in writing that I am the sole account holder for the reservation and that I paid for everything voluntarily. Second, if anyone in my party tries to make changes without my presence, I want you to contact me immediately. Of course, I will send you an official letter confirming all the details of your reservation and payment. I will also brief all front desk staff on the situation. One more thing, Mr. Hernandez. Would it be possible to schedule a meeting for tomorrow morning? I believe I will need to make some changes to the reservation." "Certainly. Does 9 o'clock work for you?" "Perfect." My third call was the most important. I looked in my notebook for the number of Mr. Peterson, the lawyer who had helped my husband with his will and had handled some minor family matters over the years. "Peterson Law Firm. Good afternoon." "Good afternoon. Is Mr. Peterson available? This is Estela Morales." "Mrs. Morales, what a pleasure to hear from you. Mr. Peterson is in a consultation, but I can interrupt him if it's urgent." "It's urgent." 3 minutes later, Mr. Peterson's familiar voice filled the phone. "Estela, how are you? Is everything all right?" "No, Mr. Peterson, nothing is all right. I need urgent legal advice." I told him the whole story. The trip, the group chat messages, the plan to dispute the charges, everything. Mr. Peterson listened without interrupting, making occasional sounds of disapproval. "Estela, this is very serious. What your sons are planning constitutes financial fraud and elder abuse." "Elder abuse?" "Yes. Using deception to obtain financial benefits from a senior citizen is a federal offense. Furthermore, disputing legitimate charges is bank fraud." "What can I do?" "Several things. First, it's good that you've already contacted the bank. Second, I am going to email you a document that I want you to sign and have notarized. It's a sworn affidavit stating that you voluntarily paid for all the trip expenses. Is there a notary at the resort? Most large resorts have notary services for guests. Ask the manager." "What else can I do?" "Estela, I have to ask you something important. Do you want to take legal action against your sons?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Legal action against Michael and David, the boys I had raised, whom I had cared for when they were sick, for whom I had sacrificed so much. "I don't know, Mr. Peterson. I just want them to stop." "I understand. But I want you to know that you have options. You can sue them for fraud. You can change your will. You can take measures to protect your assets. Think about it." After hanging up, I sat in silence for several minutes. The sun was beginning to set, painting my room in golden hues. I could hear the happy voices of my family returning from the beach, laughing, talking about their plans for dinner. At 6:30, someone knocked on my door. It was Michael. "Hi, Mom. How was your afternoon?" "Very productive, son." "Productive? What did you do?" "Important calls. Paperwork. Adult things." I saw his smile become a little strained. "Mom, speaking of paperwork, David and I were thinking that maybe it would be easier if we handled some of the hotel details. So you don't have to worry." There it was, the first official move of their plan. "What kind of details?" "Well, the keys to the other rooms, for example, in case there's an emergency and we need access." "What kind of emergency would require you to have access to rooms that aren't yours?" Michael seemed thrown off by the direct question. "I don't know, Mom. We just thought it would be more practical." "Michael," I said in the calmest voice I could manage, "I am 65 years old, not 95. I can handle the keys to the rooms perfectly fine." "Of course, Mom. I didn't mean you couldn't. I just thought—" "What did you think?" "Exactly. I watched him get nervous, searching for the right words to manipulate the situation without sounding too obvious. "Nothing, Mom. Forget it. Are you coming to dinner?" "Of course. It's my money paying for that dinner, isn't it?" The question took him by surprise. "Your money? Whose else would it be, Michael?" "No, of course. You're right. We'll split everything at the end of the trip, like we talked about." "When did we talk about that exactly?" Michael fell silent for a moment, clearly confused by my change in attitude. The submissive, accommodating Estella he expected to find wasn't there. "Well, Mom, I thought it was obvious that what was obvious. That we were going to share the expenses." "Michael, did I ever ask you if you wanted to share the expenses?" "No, but did we ever agree that this would be a shared expense?" "Mom, I don't understand why you're asking these questions." I stood up and walked to the door. "Let's go to dinner, son. I'm hungry." As we walked to the elevator, I could feel his confusion. His plan required me to be predictable, manageable, to act as I had always acted. But I was no longer the same woman who had arrived at the resort 2 days ago. During dinner, I watched my family with new eyes. I saw how each of them enjoyed the food I had paid for, the expensive drinks they ordered without a thought, the multiple desserts they requested on a whim. I saw them talking about their plans for the next day, as if I weren't there, as if my presence were optional. But I also saw something else. I saw Chloe watching me with worried eyes, understanding that something had changed in me. I saw my younger grandchildren genuinely enjoying the trip, knowing nothing of the adults' betrayals. And I realized something important. Not everyone at that table had betrayed me. That night, after everyone had gone to their rooms, Chloe came to see me as we had agreed. "Grandma, what's going on? Dad was acting so weird." "He was acting weird because his plan isn't going as he expected." I told her about my calls that day, about the measures I had taken to protect myself, about the meeting I had scheduled with the hotel manager in the morning. "Are you going to cancel the trip?" she asked, her eyes wide. "No, my love. I'm going to do something much better." "What?" I smiled. And for the first time in days, it was a genuine, unforced smile. "I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve." At 5 in the morning, I was already awake, not because I had set an alarm, but because my body had developed the habit of waking up early during those months of selling pies. But this time, instead of feeling the familiar weight of exhaustion and obligation, I felt strangely energized. Today was the day everything would change. I showered calmly, dressed in my best outfit, the navy blue suit I had bought for my husband's funeral, but had never had an important occasion to wear. Then I went down to the restaurant. It was 6:30, and the place was almost empty. Perfect. I needed quiet to review my notes one last time. As I sipped my coffee and reviewed the documents Mr. Peterson had emailed me overnight, I saw Miguel Hernandez, the resort manager, walk in. He was a man in his 40s, elegant, with that warm professionalism that characterizes people who truly understand service. "Mrs. Morales, good morning. How did you sleep?" "Very well, thank you. Could we move our meeting up? I have a few things I'd like to discuss before my family wakes up." "Of course. Would you prefer to go to my office?" "Yes, that would be perfect." His office was elegant but welcoming, with a view of the resort's garden. It had diplomas on the walls, photos of special events, and a coffee machine he immediately offered to use. "Mrs. Morales, last night I reviewed your case with my legal team. We want to make sure we fully understand the situation." "Your legal team?" "Yes, cases like yours, while unfortunately not rare, require us to follow certain protocols to protect both the guest and the resort." Miguel opened a folder on his desk. "Let me confirm. You paid the full reservation of $4,200 with your own credit card, without coercion, as a surprise for your family. Is that correct?" "Completely correct." "And you have evidence that some members of your family plan to fraudulently dispute these charges?" "Yes. My granddaughter overheard my son coordinating with the bank." "I see. I have 2 documents here that I would like you to review. The first was an official statement from the resort, confirming all the details of my reservation and payment. The second was more interesting, an addendum to the contract giving me exclusive authority over every aspect of the stay." "What does this mean exactly?" I asked, pointing to the second document. "It means that you, as the person who paid and the primary name on the reservation, have absolute control. You can decide who stays and who goes. You can modify services. You can even cancel specific rooms if you wish. My pulse quickened. I can cancel specific rooms? Absolutely. There are 5 suites reserved under your name. You can keep all 5, or you can cancel 1, 2, 3, or even 4 of them if you wish. And the people in those rooms? They would have to find alternative accommodations or leave the resort. The idea began to form in my mind with crystal clarity. Miguel, what time is checkout? Normally at noon, but we can be flexible depending on the circumstances. And if someone needs to leave before then? That's also possible. Are you considering making changes to the reservation? I was silent for a moment, looking out the window at the gardens where the groundskeepers were already starting their work. It was early, but the day promised to be beautiful, sunny, perfect for the beach, the kind of day my family had planned to enjoy entirely at my expense. Miguel, I want to make some changes, but I need them to be executed exactly as I am about to explain. Of course. I'm all ears. I want to cancel 4 of the 5 suites. Miguel raised his eyebrows slightly but maintained his professional expression. Which ones specifically? I took out my notebook where I had written down the room numbers. Suites 301, 302, 304, and 305. I want to keep only 303, which is mine. Understood. And when would you like these cancellations to take effect? Today. But not immediately. First, I want you to block access to those rooms at 10 o'clock in the morning. Their keycards will stop working. And after that, at 11 o'clock, I want resort staff to go to those suites and inform the guests that they must vacate the rooms by noon due to changes in the reservation. Miguel took notes as I spoke, without judgment. Completely professional. Are there any specific instructions I should give the staff? Yes. They should explain that the primary guest, which is me, has decided to modify the stay, that it is not the resort's fault, but a personal decision by the person who paid for the reservation. And if they ask where they can find you to speak with you, you can tell them I am available in suite 303, but only if they come to speak civilly. If there is any shouting, threats, or disrespect toward the hotel staff, you have instructions to contact security. Miguel finished writing and looked at me with a mix of admiration and curiosity. Mrs. Morales, may I ask what led you to this decision? Miguel, do you have a family? Yes. A wife and 2 young children. Do you love them? Of course. Would you do anything for them? Without hesitation. And what if they betrayed you? If you discovered they were using you, were ashamed of you, were planning to defraud you? Miguel was quiet for a moment. I think I understand. For 40 years, I raised my sons. I fed them, clothed them, cared for them when they were sick. I worked to give them an education, sacrificed my dreams for theirs. And now, when I thought we could finally enjoy time together as a family, I discover they see me as a useful nuisance, good only for paying bills. I am very sorry, Mrs. Morales. Don't be sorry, Miguel. This isn't sadness. This is liberation. I signed all the necessary documents, including the sworn affidavit Mr. Peterson had prepared. Miguel called a hotel notary who arrived in 10 minutes to make everything official. One last thing, I told Miguel as we finished. Could you arrange for a taxi at 12:30? For how many people? Just 2. My granddaughter Chloe and myself. Are you going to the airport? No, we're going to another hotel, one where we can truly enjoy a vacation. Miguel smiled for the first time during our meeting. It will be my pleasure to assist you with that as well. When I returned to my room, it was 8:30. My family was surely awake by now, planning another perfect day without me. But this time, things would be different. I sat on the balcony with a fresh cup of coffee I had ordered from room service and waited. At 9, I would receive the first message from Chloe with the secret group's conversations. At 10, their keycards would stop working. At 11, hotel staff would knock on their doors, and for the first time in my life, I was in complete control. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Michael. Mom, we're going to breakfast. Are you coming? I replied, No thank you, I have other plans today. What plans? You'll see, son. You'll see. I looked at my watch. It was 5 minutes to 9. In 5 minutes, the countdown would begin to the moment my family discovered they had gravely underestimated the woman who gave them life. And honestly, I couldn't wait to see their faces. At exactly 9 o'clock, my phone buzzed with the first message from Chloe. It was a screenshot from the secret group, sent just minutes before. Perfect plan for today. Beach all morning, spa in the afternoon. The old lady will probably stay in her room like yesterday. Great. After lunch, we'll talk to reception to get control of the other rooms. Did you confirm the thing with the bank, David? Yep, the dispute process should be ready this afternoon. By tomorrow, we won't have to worry about the expenses. Each message was further confirmation that I had made the right decision. There was no doubt, no guilt, no room for regret. They had chosen this path. At 9:30, another message from Chloe. Grandma, they're all at the pool. Dad just said that after lunch he's going to reception to sort out the rooms. I also heard Aunt Jessica say that today is the last day they have to pretend everything is okay. The last day they had to pretend. As if being with me was an unbearable performance that was finally coming to an end. I poured myself another cup of coffee and sat comfortably in the armchair by the balcony. From there, I could see the pool where my family was enjoying themselves. Michael and David were in the water with some of the grandkids. Jessica and Lauren were sipping cocktails under an umbrella, all of them laughing, relaxed, happy, making the most of the vacation I had paid for while they plotted to betray me. At 5 minutes to 10, my phone rang. It was Miguel. Mrs. Morales, the system is ready. In 2 minutes, the key cards for suites 301, 302, 304, and 305 will be deactivated. Perfect, Miguel. Is your staff prepared for what's coming? Completely. We have the security team on standby, and I've already briefed the housekeeping staff on how to handle the situation with diplomacy but firmness. Excellent. I'll see them in an hour. I looked at my watch. 9:58, 9:59, 10 o'clock. At that moment, my family's key cards had just become useless pieces of plastic. They wouldn't be able to get into their rooms, access their belongings, change their clothes, or take a shower after the pool. I waited. It didn't take long. At 7 minutes past 10, I saw Lauren get up from her lounge chair and walk toward the elevators. She was probably going to get something from her room. At 12 minutes past 10, my phone buzzed with an urgent message from Chloe. Grandma, Mom is yelling at the front desk. She says her keycard isn't working. 3 minutes later, another message. Now they're all there. Dad is really upset. The receptionist is explaining something, but I can't hear well from here. At 20 minutes past 10, Michael called me. His voice was tense, controlled, but I could detect the panic underneath. Mom, there's a problem with the rooms. The keys aren't working. Could you come down to reception to help us sort it out? What kind of problem? We don't know. The receptionist says there's a change to the reservation, but that's impossible because nobody has changed anything. How strange, I replied in the most innocent voice I could muster. Are you sure no one changed anything? Of course not, Mom. Could you please come down? We need to fix this fast because the kids want to get back to the rooms. I'm a little busy right now, son. But don't worry. I'm sure it will be resolved soon. Busy with what? Important things. I hung up before he could respond. At 10:45, Chloe sent me another message. Grandma, the hotel manager is talking to Dad and Uncle Michael. They look very worried. Aunt Jessica is arguing with a receptionist. At 10:58, my phone rang again. This time it was David. Mom, we need you to come to reception now. There's a very serious misunderstanding, and only you can fix it. What kind of misunderstanding? The hotel says that you canceled our rooms. That's ridiculous, right? Just tell them it's a mistake. Why would that be ridiculous, David? What do you mean, why? Because there's no reason for you to cancel our rooms, isn't there? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Mom, what is going on? I'm sure Miguel explained it to you very well. Miguel? You know the manager? Of course. We had a very productive meeting this morning. Another silence. When David spoke again, his voice had changed completely. Mom, you canceled our rooms. Yes. Why? Because I could. And I hung up. At exactly 11 o'clock, from my balcony, I saw hotel staff walking toward the pool area. There were 3 of them. Miguel, a woman who looked like she was from guest relations, and a plain-clothed security guard. I watched as they approached my family, as Miguel spoke to Michael while gesturing toward the hotel. I saw the expressions of shock, confusion, and then anger cross the faces of my sons and daughters-in-law. I saw how the grandchildren, who didn't understand what was happening, gathered around their parents, looking for explanations. At 11:05, someone pounded on my door. It wasn't the polite knock of a social call. It was loud, urgent, desperate. I opened the door to find all 4 of them: Michael, David, Jessica, and Lauren. Their faces were a collage of emotions: fury, confusion, panic, disbelief. Behind them in the hall, I could see some of my grandchildren waiting with their beach bags in hand. "What the hell is going on?" Jessica shouted before I could say a word. "Good morning to you, too," I replied calmly, stepping aside to let them in. "Don't get sarcastic with me, Estella," Jessica continued. "The hotel says you canceled our rooms. That's ridiculous." "Why is it ridiculous?" "Because we're your family." "Oh, are you? Since when?" Michael stepped forward, trying to use his most conciliatory tone. "Mom, there's clearly been a misunderstanding. Let's just go down to reception and clear this all up." "There's no misunderstanding, Michael. I canceled your rooms because you are no longer welcome on my vacation." "Your vacation?" Lauren looked genuinely confused. "I thought this was a family trip." "I thought so too, until I found out that you don't consider me family." David frowned. "What are you talking about?" I took out my phone and showed them the screenshots of the secret group chat that Chloe had sent me. I watched their faces fall as they read their own messages. "This," Michael struggled for words, "this isn't what it looks like." "Isn't it?" "Then explain what free vacation and no family drama means, Michael." The silence in the room was deafening. The 4 of them looked at each other, searching for an explanation, an excuse, a way out of the hole they had dug for themselves. "Mom," David finally spoke, "I understand you're upset, but you can't just leave us without rooms. We have small children." "The same children you were going to keep away from me by hiring a babysitter?" "That was—" "And what about the bank, David? Did you start the charge dispute yet?" David's face went completely pale. "How did you know?" "I know everything. I know about the group chat. I know about your plans to take control of the reservation. I know about the fraudulent dispute you were planning to file with the bank. I know everything." Jessica slumped into the armchair, covering her face with her hands. Lauren looked like she was going to be sick. Michael and David just stood in the middle of the room, like children caught stealing cookies. "So," I said, my voice sounding strangely calm, "even to me, here are your options. You can take your things, which the hotel staff has already very kindly packed up for you. You can call a taxi, and you can go find another hotel where you can pay for your own vacation." "Or what?" Michael asked, his voice trembling. "Oh, nothing. That's your only option." "You can't do this," Jessica shouted, jumping up from the chair. "We are your family. You can't abandon us." I looked directly into the eyes of this woman, who for years had tolerated my advice with fake smiles, who had spoken behind my back, who had turned my son against me. "Jessica," I said with a calmness that surprised even me, "who abandoned whom first?" And in that moment, I saw in her eyes that she knew exactly what I was talking about. The war was over before they even knew it had begun. The silence that followed my question was devastating. I could hear the air conditioner humming, the distant voices of other guests in the hallway, the soft sound of waves on the beach. But in my suite, the silence was so thick it felt like it had its own weight. Michael was the first to try and recover. "Mom, this is insane. You can't be serious." "Do I look like I'm kidding?" But the kids. What will the grandkids think?" For the first time since the confrontation began, I felt a pang in my chest. My grandchildren, the only innocent ones in this whole betrayal, the grandkids will think that their parents made some very poor decisions and now have to face the consequences. "You're destroying this family," Lauren cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No, Lauren. This family destroyed itself when you all decided I was an obstacle instead of a valued member." David approached me, his hands outstretched in a pleading gesture. "Mom, please. I know we made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can talk." You want to talk now? After months of planning this deception? It wasn't months, Michael mumbled. No? The group chat was created the same day you invited me on this trip, Michael. The very same day. I watched him deflate internally. There was no way to deny the evidence anymore. Fine, Jessica said, standing up with a furious expression she no longer tried to hide. You want to be the martyr? You want to pull your dramatic stunt? Perfect. But don't expect us to come running back when you get lonely again. Her words were designed to hurt me, to make me reconsider, to trigger that part of me that had always been afraid of being alone. Jessica, I said, walking to the door and opening it wide. I would rather be alone than be in the company of people who despise me. We don't despise you, David exclaimed. No? Then explain to me what getting rid of the burden means, and the last day we have to pretend everything is okay. David opened his mouth to answer, but no sound came out. Just then, Chloe appeared at the door. She had been waiting in the hall with the other grandchildren, looking clearly distressed. What's going on? She asked in a small voice. The kids don't understand why we have to leave. My heart broke a little more. This girl, my granddaughter, who had shown me the messages, who had been my ally, now had to leave too. Chloe, I said softly, come here. She came over, and I took her hands. Sweetie, your parents and I have some very serious differences. They are going to have to leave the resort. But why, Grandma? I looked at David, her father, wondering if he would finally have the courage to tell his own daughter the truth. Why? David said, his voice cracking. Because Dad made some very big mistakes. Chloe looked at her father, then at me, and in her eyes, I saw an understanding that went beyond her 17 years. Does it have to do with the group chat? Everyone froze. Lauren turned to her daughter with a panicked expression. What do you know about that? I know everything, Mom. I know what you've been saying about Grandma. I know you never wanted her to come on the trip. I know you only used her so she would pay for everything. The silence that followed was different. It was no longer tense with denial. It was heavy with the shame of recognition. Chloe, Lauren tried to explain. Things aren't as simple as, aren't they? Chloe pulled her hands away from mine and turned to her parents. So it's not true that you made a group without Grandma to make fun of her? It's not true that you planned to dispute the bank charges so you wouldn't have to pay? It's not true that you hired a babysitter so we wouldn't have to spend time with her? Each question was like a slap. I watched my children and their spouses shrink physically under the weight of the words from a teenager who had seen right through their lies. You hurt the one person who has always been there for us, Chloe continued, tears in her eyes but her voice steady. Grandma sold her wedding ring to pay for this trip for us. Did you know that? She sold Grandpa's ring. Michael sank into a chair, as if his legs could no longer support him. You sold your ring? I needed the money for the deposit. Mom, David looked sick. We didn't know, because you never asked. You just assumed I had an infinite supply of money for your whims. Jessica, who had been silent during Chloe's speech, finally spoke. Fine, we'll leave. But this isn't over. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You can't treat your family like this and not expect consequences. Jessica, I said, walking toward her until we were face to face. I didn't treat my family badly. My family treated me badly. What's happening now are the consequences of your actions, not mine. Michael got up from the chair. Mom, please, we can fix this. We can. You can what, Michael? Erase the messages you wrote? Cancel the fraudulent dispute you started? Give me back the respect you took from me? We can apologize. Are you apologizing because you got caught? Or because you're truly sorry? Michael couldn't answer. Exactly. Just then, Miguel knocked gently on the open door. Excuse the interruption. Mrs. Morales, your taxi is ready. He looked at my children. And for the family, your belongings are in the lobby. The resort can assist you in finding alternative accommodations if you need them. Thank you, Miguel. A taxi? Lauren asked. You're leaving too? Yes. Chloe and I are going to another hotel where we can actually enjoy the vacation I deserve. Chloe is going with you? David looked genuinely surprised. I glanced at my granddaughter, who nodded firmly. Chloe is the only person in this family who treated me with respect and honesty. She's the only one who deserves to share this vacation with me. You can't take our daughter, Lauren cried. I'm not taking her. She's choosing to come with me. Chloe, David spoke directly to his daughter. You can't do this. We're your family. Dad. Chloe looked at him with an expression that mixed love and disappointment. Grandma is our family too, and you betrayed her. I can't be a part of that. It's just for a few days, I added. After that, she can decide if she wants to return to you or not. This is kidnapping, Jessica muttered. No, I said firmly. This is justice. Michael approached me one last time. Mom, if we leave like this, things will never be the same between us. Michael, I put my hand on his shoulder, and for a moment, I saw the little boy he had been before he became the man who had chosen to betray me. Things are already never going to be the same. You all made sure of that. I picked up my suitcase, which I had packed that morning after my meeting with Miguel. Chloe already had hers ready. Where are you going? David asked in a defeated voice. To a place where I can be a grandmother without having to apologize for existing. We walked to the door. The other grandchildren were waiting in the hall, confused and sad, not fully understanding what was happening but knowing something important had broken. I knelt down in front of them. I love you all so much, I said, and this is not your fault. Someday, when you're older, you'll understand why Grandma had to do this. Leo, the little 8-year-old, hugged me tight. Aren't we going to build sandcastles anymore? Someday, we will build the most beautiful castles in the world, I promised him, when your parents remember how to treat the people who love them. Chloe and I walked to the elevator. As the doors closed, I could see my family in the hallway. My defeated sons, my furious daughters-in-law, my confused grandchildren. In the lobby, Miguel was waiting for us with our taxi. Mrs. Morales, he said as the driver loaded our bags. It has been an honor to meet you. What you did today took a great deal of courage. It wasn't courage, Miguel. It was survival. As the taxi pulled away from the resort, I looked out the back window. I could see my family at the entrance with their suitcases, probably calling other hotels, looking for a place to stay. Do you have any regrets, Grandma? Chloe asked me. I thought about her question as the scenery passed by. I thought about 40 years of motherhood, of sacrifices never acknowledged, of love given freely with nothing expected in return except, in the end, basic respect. No, I finally answered. I regret that it took me so long to value myself. The taxi was headed toward a small boutique hotel on the coast where I had made a reservation that morning. A place where a grandmother and her granddaughter could build sandcastles, enjoy quiet dinners, and remember what it really meant to be family. For the first time in years, I felt free. And for the first time in my life, I had put my own needs first. It was terrifying and liberating all at once, but mostly, it just felt right.